All right, let's bring in criminal defense attorney Elizabeth Kelly. She was also in the courtroom watching the arguments, and she's a defense attorney out there in Ohio. Elizabeth, thanks for joining us.
Hello, Vinny. Good to be with you.
Is there any meaty issue, any issue that is something that you, as an experienced attorney, took a listen to this morning and said, hey, maybe the defense has something here?
Well, yes, Vinny. As a matter of fact, Steve Miles, the defense attorney, raised 11 assignments of error. That is to say, things he thought that the trial court did wrong. And he prioritized 3 of those arguments. As Grace said, he said that the court failed to give a cautionary instruction as to the testimony of 2 of the prosecution's star witnesses who were given sweetheart deals. And then he also said that closely linked to that was the fact that the prosecutor improperly vouched for the testimony of one of the witnesses in his closing argument, something that prosecutors are not allowed to do. And finally, he said that one of the witnesses improperly bolstered the testimony of another witness. What Mr. Miles did not argue in oral arguments, though, and he did argue in his brief, were several arguments.
Elizabeth, how about, go ahead, continue, I'm sorry.
What Steve Miles did argue in his brief were a number of arguments dealing with the improper admission of character evidence. And I know from personal experience in this Court of Appeals that those are very strong arguments, and those are often enough to vacate a conviction. And
that was my question to you, is the reality of it. What's the reality of an appeals court in Ohio actually taking a criminal conviction and overturning it and saying, hey, you guys are going back and you're going to do it all over again?
Well, it is fairly common to have that happen in this particular Court of Appeals, which oversees Cleveland or Cuyahoga County. As you know, Vinny, once a defendant has been convicted in the trial court, the standard of proof, the burden of proof, is completely inverted in the Court of Appeals. So now the burden is on the defense, and the defense has got to prove that the trial court did err. Now, one of the things that the prosecution did argue during its oral argument was that none of the arguments raised by Mr. Miles were significant enough to overturn the conviction because, quite frankly, he felt that the evidence against Dr. Essa was so overwhelming that it would only constitute what a court would call harmless error. However, Mr. Miles countered that it was the collection of all 11 errors that are significant enough to show that in total, Dr. Essa did not receive the fair trial that he is entitled to under the law and statutes of this country.
All right. I don't know if do we still have Grace on the line? Grace, are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Grace, any family members there? Because I know this was so painful for them